Good evening. Imagine a blueprint not of steel and glass, but of hearts and human connection. Imagine a world where the scaffolding is not only talent or technology, but trust, compassion, and authenticity. Tonight, I invite you to step into that blueprint with me, because what we build tomorrow doesn't belong to one person, one generation, or one voice. It belongs to all of us, and the first stone you hold might just be your own. I stand before you not with declarations of perfection, but with an honest admission: we don't know everything, we don't control every force, and the map for tomorrow is not drawn. What we do know is this: if we dare to imagine a future grounded in truth, empathy, and shared purpose, and if we show up, warts and all, with courage, then we begin to draft something beautiful and lasting. Vision with vulnerability is the beginning of every meaningful transformation. Because the future is not built by people pretending to be unbreakable, it is built by people who are willing to be honest about the cracks. When we talk about designing tomorrow, most people imagine confidence, certainty, and a flawless plan, but the truth is that the strongest blueprint for the future is drawn by those who dare to admit what they don't know, what scares them, and what they still hope for despite the uncertainty. Vulnerability is not weakness in this process. It is the raw material of vision. It is the courage to stand in front of your own life and say, "This is where I am, this is what I feel, and this is what I'm willing to build next." Think about how every great structure begins. Not with perfection, but with a foundation, a deep, unfiltered look at the ground we're standing on. If the ground is unstable, pretending it's fine will only set us up for collapse later. In the same way, pretending to be strong when we are hurting, pretending to be certain when we're lost, or pretending to be confident when we're trembling only distances us from the very future we say we want to create. Vulnerability is the act of examining our internal landscape with honesty. It allows us to see the soft places, the wounds, the fears, and rather than hiding them, we let them guide us toward what actually needs building. Vision without vulnerability becomes fantasy. It becomes a polished dream we never pursue because we're afraid someone will see us fail. But vision with vulnerability becomes a living, breathing commitment. It becomes a future shaped by truth, not ego. When we allow ourselves to acknowledge our fears, we also allow ourselves to make choices beyond them. Vulnerability opens the door to courage, and courage is the architect's steady hand. Together, they form the blueprint for tomorrow. There's a powerful shift that happens when we stop pretending we have everything figured out. Instead of carrying the heavy armor of perfection, we carry the lightweight honesty of transparency. People can walk closer to us, opportunities can reach us, connection becomes possible, and once connection enters the story, the vision grows bigger than anything we could have imagined alone. Vulnerability invites input, collaboration, and wisdom from others, all essential materials for building a future that lasts. When we talk about vision, people often focus on goals, but the heart of vision lies not in what you want to have, but in who you're willing to become. Vulnerability asks you to look beyond the surface and into your authentic self. What do you long for? What breaks your heart? What excites you so deeply that it scares you? These answers shape a future far more meaningful than any plan made solely from logic or ambition. Vulnerability lets you see not just what is possible, but what is necessary. It reveals what your future requires of you not only externally, but internally. There is also a quiet bravery in admitting that you want more from your life. Many people hide in comfort because dreaming out loud feels risky. What if we fail? What if people judge us? What if no one understands the vision forming inside us? Yet this is precisely where vulnerability becomes transformative. Revealing the dream is the first brick, acting on the dream is the next, and each moment of courageous honesty pulls the future closer. Vision with vulnerability also means embracing the possibility of getting it wrong sometimes. Not every idea will work, not every step will be steady, but when the foundation is honest, even failure becomes a form of growth. Vulnerability teaches us to rise instead of retreat, to learn instead of hide, to adapt instead of collapse, and through this process, the vision becomes stronger, clearer, and more resilient. In the end, vulnerability doesn't dim the vision, it sharpens it. It removes illusion and leaves truth. It clears away the noise and reveals what truly matters. It anchors us in authenticity while helping us imagine a tomorrow worthy of our courage. Vision with vulnerability is not just a concept, it is a way of building a life rooted in honesty, shaped by courage, and strengthened by the willingness to be seen exactly as we are while we step toward who we are becoming. Belonging and inclusion form the emotional architecture of any future worth building, because tomorrow is strongest when every voice has a place in its creation. When people feel unseen, unheard, or unvalued, the foundation cracks before the first wall is even raised. But when people feel included, truly included, something extraordinary happens. They bring their whole selves forward. And when humans show up fully, the world becomes richer, more textured, more resilient. Inclusion is not a buzzword or a decorative addition to progress. It is the support beam of every community, every team, every dream that hopes to stand the test of time. Belonging is not about fitting in. Fitting in demands performance, the quiet pressure to shrink certain parts of ourselves while exaggerating others so we can match the room. Belonging, however, is the opposite. It is the freedom to be who we are without fear that authenticity will cost us connection. A vision for tomorrow cannot be built on fitting in because fitting in is fragile, but belonging is solid. It grows deeper as people are invited to bring their differences, their stories, their identities, and their truths into the shared space. Inclusion means more than opening the door. It means making sure the room is designed so everyone can move, breathe, and contribute. It means more than adding chairs around the table. It means listening when people speak, especially when their experiences differ from ours. It means creating structures where no one has to fight for permission to exist. When people feel included, they don't just participate, they invest. They offer ideas that would have stayed silent. They reveal strengths that would have stayed hidden. They give energy that would have been guarded. Inclusion transforms potential into power. A future shaped by belonging is a future where people are not categorized by their limitations but invited in because of their humanity. It is a future where differences are not obstacles but sources of innovation. Diversity without belonging is decoration. Diversity with belonging becomes momentum. It becomes a force so strong that obstacles begin to feel less like walls and more like opportunities to build new doors. When people from different backgrounds, perspectives, and histories come together, the blueprint expands in ways one mind alone could never imagine. But belonging requires courage, the courage to listen even when it feels uncomfortable, the courage to acknowledge where we have fallen short, and the courage to show up for others even when their experiences challenge our assumptions. Inclusion is a practice, not a moment. It requires continuous choosing empathy over ego, understanding over defensiveness, openness over certainty. Every time we choose connection, we reinforce the structure of tomorrow's world. In the absence of belonging, fear grows, people retreat, protecting themselves instead of contributing. They stop sharing ideas, they stop taking risks, they disconnect emotionally. But when belonging exists, people rise. They bring creativity, compassion, and conviction. They trust themselves and each other. They take risks because they know they will not face failure alone. And in that safety, innovation thrives. Belonging also transforms leadership. Leaders who cultivate inclusion create environments where people are not just present but empowered. They understand that leadership is not about commanding followers but lifting contributors. They know that the most visionary solutions come from the collective, not the individual. When leaders choose belonging, they move from control to connection. They move from hierarchy to shared purpose, and that shift changes everything. Inclusion is also an invitation for each of us to examine our part in the story. Tomorrow is not only shaped by grand gestures, but by small, consistent moments. Asking someone's opinion, making space for a quieter voice, challenging harmful patterns, standing beside someone who feels alone. These small acts accumulate. They become the culture. They become the world we are designing. Belonging and inclusion ensure that tomorrow is not built for a few, but for all. They ensure that every person can see themselves not just living in the future, but shaping it. And when every person feels they belong, the world we create is not only bigger and brighter, it is unshakable. Courageous compassion is the quiet force that holds people together when everything around them feels uncertain. It asks us to show up with tenderness even when the world tempts us to harden. It asks us to care even when we feel exhausted. It demands that we extend understanding even when we are carrying our own pain. This kind of compassion is not soft or passive. It is one of the most powerful forms of courage a person can practice. It means choosing humanity over judgment, presence over avoidance, and connection over self-protection. If we want to build a tomorrow that is stable, meaningful, and deeply human, courageous compassion must be one of its foundational beams. Most people think of compassion as something gentle, a warm feeling that emerges naturally. But true compassion is an active choice. It means seeing someone struggle and deciding not to turn away. It means acknowledging that every person, no matter how strong they appear, carries invisible burdens. And it means saying, "Your pain matters, and I will not let you face it alone." That commitment takes bravery, because offering compassion often requires entering emotional territory we would rather avoid. It means opening our hearts without knowing how the story will end. Courageous compassion also means holding space for people without trying to fix them. Our instinct is often to jump in, solve the problems, offer advice, or make the discomfort disappear. But real compassion sees the person, not just the pain. It listens without rushing. It witnesses without controlling. It honors that healing is not something we can force on someone else, but something we can support by simply being present. There is immense courage in sitting with another person's truth, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it triggers our own wounds. But this keynote is not only about compassion for others. Courageous compassion begins with ourselves. We build a stronger tomorrow when we stop treating our mistakes like moral failures and begin treating them like lessons. Self-compassion allows us to move forward without shame weighing down every step. It invites us to forgive the parts of ourselves that are still learning. It tells us that we do not need to be perfect to be worthy of love, dignity, or a second chance. When we practice self-compassion, we become far more capable of offering genuine compassion to others. The way we treat ourselves sets the tone for the way we treat the world. This form of compassion also asks us to break cycles of blame, resentment, silence, and disconnection. When someone hurts us, the instinct is to guard our hearts, to protect ourselves with distance or anger. But courageous compassion asks us to respond differently. It asks us to stay open while still honoring our boundaries. It asks us to confront harm with clarity, not cruelty. It asks us to choose empathy without abandoning accountability. Compassion does not mean allowing harmful behavior. It simply means refusing to become hardened by it. In moments of conflict, courageous compassion becomes a guiding light. It reminds us to look beyond the argument and see the person. It teaches us that understanding does not mean agreeing, and that kindness does not mean surrendering our truth. Compassion focuses on connection, even in disagreement. It says, "I will treat you with dignity, even when we stand on opposite sides." This approach transforms conversations, relationships, and communities. Courageous compassion is also the antidote to a culture that praises independence while ignoring interdependence. No one thrives alone. No one heals alone. No one builds a meaningful future in isolation. Compassion is the bridge between individuals, reminding us that our lives are intertwined. When one person suffers, the community feels it. When one person rises, we are all lifted. Courageous compassion strengthens those bonds and helps us recognize the humanity in each other. Offering compassion requires emotional stamina, the willingness to show up even when it's difficult, to care even when it costs time or energy, and to respond with gentleness when frustration would be easier. This strength is not loud. It doesn't demand attention. It often goes unnoticed, but it shapes the world in quiet, powerful ways. Compassion changes the atmosphere of a room, the direction of a conversation, the trajectory of a life. If tomorrow is to be built on connection, trust, and meaning, courageous compassion must be practiced daily. It is the force that softens hardened hearts, reconnects isolated people, repairs broken relationships, and bridges divides. It teaches us that vulnerability and strength are not opposites but partners, and with every act of courageous compassion, we lay down another stone in the foundation of a future rooted in understanding, empathy, and shared humanity. Resilience through connection is the understanding that human strength is not forged in isolation. It is shaped, supported, and sustained by the relationships that surround us. So much of the world tells us that resilience is an individual achievement, that we steel ourselves, grit our teeth, push through alone, and emerge victorious. But real resilience is rarely solitary. Real resilience grows from the presence of people who sit beside us in our struggle, who remind us of our capacity when we forget it, who lend us their strength when ours is running low. Connection is not a luxury. It is the lifeline that makes survival possible and growth inevitable. There is a misconception that resilient people are unshakable, that they recover quickly from every setback, but resilience is not about bouncing back instantly. It is about returning with wisdom. It is about falling and getting up with a deeper understanding of who we are. And connection accelerates this process. When we share the truth of our pain with someone trustworthy, the weight becomes lighter. When we let someone witness our struggle, shame loses its grip. When we allow others to help us, resilience becomes a shared act rather than a solitary burden. Connection strengthens resilience because it disrupts the lie that we are alone in our experiences. Hardship often whispers that no one else will understand, that our struggles make us different or defective. But the moment we speak our truth, we learn that others have bruised hearts too, that others have walked similar roads, that others have felt lost, afraid, or broken. This shared humanity becomes a powerful reminder that our pain does not isolate us, it connects us. In that connection, resilience grows quietly, almost naturally, like a muscle strengthened by use. The presence of connection does not remove difficulty, but it transforms how we endure it. When we know someone is in our corner, we take braver steps. When we know we have a safe place to fall, we take bigger risks. When we know our worth is not based on perfection, we approach failure not as an ending, but as an opportunity to grow. Connection changes the way we face adversity because it tells us, you do not have to carry this alone. There's a unique form of resilience that emerges when we share our stories. Stories reveal our wounds, our victories, our fears, our resilience. When we tell our story, we are not only healing ourselves, we are building a bridge for someone else. Listening to another person's story teaches us that healing is possible. Sharing our own teaches someone else that they too can rise. These exchanges of truth, vulnerability, and understanding create a network of strength far greater than any one person can hold alone. Connection also requires that we practice empathy, not only offering it to others, but allowing ourselves to receive it. Many of us are far more comfortable giving support than accepting it. But resilience grows when we let others in, when we allow them to care for us, when we learn that needing help is not a weakness but a deeply human experience. Letting someone stand with us does not diminish our strength, it multiplies it. Communities built on connection foster collective resilience. Whether it's a family, a team, a group of friends, or an entire society, communities thrive when people are willing to show up for each other consistently. In connected communities, people face challenges together, celebrate victories together, and heal together. They create environments where vulnerability is met with support, and where setbacks are met with encouragement rather than judgment. This shared foundation makes everyone within it stronger, braver, and more capable of navigating the complexities of life. Resilience through connection also teaches us that our strength is not measured by how well we suppress our emotions, but by how honestly we express them. When we name our feelings and share them, we release the pressure inside us. We clear space for clarity, courage, and healing. Connection creates the emotional oxygen that resilience needs to grow. In the end, resilience is not about being invincible. It is about being supported. It is about having people to turn to when life becomes overwhelming. It is about knowing that no matter how heavy the moment feels, there is someone willing to help you carry it. And when we learn to lean on connection, to trust it, to nurture it, to give and receive through it, resilience becomes not just a personal strength, but a shared source of hope, grounding us as we move toward a tomorrow built together. Purpose-led design is the quiet discipline of choosing meaning over momentum, intention over impulse, and authenticity over appearance. It shapes tomorrow not through speed or scale, but through clarity about why we are building, who we are becoming, and what we are contributing to the world around us. Purpose-led design is not about having every detail figured out. It is about understanding the deeper truth guiding each step. When we build our lives, our relationships, our work, and our dreams around purpose, we create structures that endure, inspire, and uplift rather than collapse under pressure. Most of us are taught to chase achievements, not purpose. We learn to measure our value through accomplishments, titles, and outcomes, but purpose-led design shifts the measurement from external validation to internal alignment. It asks, does this path reflect my values? Does it honor who I am? Does it contribute something meaningful? These questions don't slow us down, they anchor us. They keep us from drifting into a version of life that looks successful on the outside but feels empty on the inside. When we design with purpose, we stop building for applause and start building for fulfillment. We stop chasing what impresses others and start pursuing what ignites us. This shift is powerful because it aligns our actions with our truth. And when actions and truth come together, we create a future that is not only functional but deeply alive. Purpose-led design also requires honesty, the willingness to confront where we have been living by accident instead of intention. Many people find themselves years into a career, relationship, or lifestyle before realizing they never truly chose it. They inherited expectations, followed norms, or chased approval. But purpose invites us to pause and reflect. It challenges us to ask whether our daily choices reflect the life we want to live. If the answer is no, purpose gives us permission to change course. Purpose-driven choices are not always comfortable. In fact, they often demand courage. They may require letting go of roles that no longer fit, setting boundaries that feel risky, or saying yes to opportunities that stretch us beyond our comfort zone. But discomfort is not a sign that we're on the wrong path. It is often a sign that we're growing into a truer version of ourselves. Purpose gives us the resilience to move through the discomfort because we know what we are moving toward. When we build with purpose, we also build with humanity. We become more aware of how our decisions impact others. We recognize that our lives are woven into the lives of those around us, and our choices ripple outward. Purpose-led design encourages us to create spaces, relationships, and systems where people are valued, uplifted, and seen. It bridges the gap between personal fulfillment and collective well-being. When our purpose benefits not only ourselves but the larger world, the future we design becomes expansive and inclusive. Purpose-led design is not about perfection, it is about alignment. It is the practice of continually returning to the core values that matter most, even when life pulls us in other directions. Purpose becomes the compass we consult during confusion, the anchor we hold during overwhelm, and the light we follow when the path feels unclear. It keeps us grounded and focused, not because we know every step, but because we know what we are committed to. Purpose also transforms the way we understand success. Instead of measuring success by how much we achieve, we measure it by how true we remain to what matters. Success becomes a lived experience rather than a destination. It becomes the peace we feel in our choices, the integrity in our actions, the joy we find in our contributions, and the connection we build with others. When we design our tomorrow with purpose, we tap into a deeper level of creativity and clarity. Purpose quiets the noise, reduces the pressure to perform, and guides us toward decisions that reflect who we are at our core. It reminds us that our lives are not checklists but canvases, and the meaning we choose to paint onto them becomes the legacy we leave behind. Purpose-led design is ultimately an invitation to build intentionally, to live authentically, to choose consciously, and to create a future that feels not only successful but meaningful. It reminds us that the most powerful tomorrow is the one built with purpose at its foundation. Accountability and integrity are the stabilizing forces of any future built to last. They are the unseen pillars that hold everything upright when pressure increases and circumstances change. Without them, even the most ambitious plans begin to fracture. But with them, relationships deepen, trust grows, and the path forward becomes clearer and more grounded. Accountability and integrity are not lofty ideals reserved for moments of convenience. They are daily practices, deliberate choices, and unwavering commitments that shape who we become and the world we are building. Integrity begins with honesty, not only with others but with ourselves. It means telling the truth even when the truth is uncomfortable. It means acknowledging our contradictions, our biases, and the places where we fall short. Many people imagine integrity as perfection, but real integrity is simply consistency between what we say and what we do. It is alignment between our values and our behavior. It is the courage to stand in our truth without bending it to fit circumstances, approval, or pressure. Accountability deepens that honesty by asking us to take responsibility for our actions and their impact. It requires us to own the moments we cause harm, make mistakes, or act from fear rather than clarity. Instead of defending the indefensible or hiding behind excuses, accountability invites us to repair. It turns missteps into opportunities for growth and strengthens our relationships through transparency. When we say, "I was wrong and I'm committed to doing better," we rebuild trust brick by brick. These practices are not easy. They demand emotional maturity, humility, and courage. They ask us to move beyond defensiveness. They challenge our desire to appear flawless, but accountability and integrity build something far more powerful than image. They build credibility. People trust us not because we never falter, but because we are willing to face our faults honestly and learn from them. A future built without accountability is fragile. Secrets, avoidance, and unspoken tensions create cracks beneath the surface. Over time, these cracks expand until the structure can no longer hold, but a future built with integrity holds steady even when challenged. Difficult conversations can be had, mistakes can be navigated, conflicts can be resolved. The foundation is durable because it is based on truth. Integrity also asks us to honor our commitments, to follow through, to show up, to keep our word even when circumstances shift. It does not mean rigidity, rather it means clarity. If we cannot keep a promise, integrity compels us to communicate rather than disappear. If our boundaries change, it asks us to express them rather than silently resent others. Integrity creates emotional safety. When people know they can rely on our words and actions, trust becomes a natural byproduct. Accountability and integrity also shape the way we lead. Leadership without these elements becomes authority, not influence. True leaders admit mistakes, take responsibility, and model vulnerability in ways that empower others to do the same. They create environments where honesty is valued, feedback is welcomed, and growth is encouraged. When leaders demonstrate accountability, the culture around them shifts. People feel safe to speak up, innovate, ask for help, and bring their authentic selves to the table. In our personal lives, integrity strengthens relationships by creating a foundation of trust. When we communicate openly, respect boundaries, and act consistently, we show others that our presence is safe. Accountability makes repair possible. It turns conflict into connection rather than disconnection. When both accountability and integrity are present, relationships deepen, misunderstandings reduce, and connection strengthens. These principles also remind us that our actions have impact. Integrity expands our awareness of how we affect others, and accountability guides us toward responsible choices. It encourages us to pause before reacting, to reflect before speaking, and to evaluate whether our behavior aligns with our values. This mindfulness reshapes not only interpersonal dynamics, but the way we move through the world. A tomorrow built on accountability and integrity is a tomorrow anchored in truth. It is a future where trust is not fragile, where relationships are not performative, and where progress is grounded in authenticity. These principles teach us that strength does not come from perfection, but from the willingness to be honest, responsible, and human. In practicing them daily, we not only build a stronger version of ourselves, but contribute to a world where honesty, respect, and trust form the bedrock of every meaningful connection.